in the Galilee, and I'm going to go into the live stream here and make sure we have sound and picture. Oh, it didn't propagate yet. Let's give it a minute. So today is the 22nd of October. It's 9:28 in the morning, and it's cool. It was in the 50s this morning, but it's going to go to the low 80s. So we got a big spread of temperatures. Still not there yet. What's going on? Let me wait. It's not propagating up onto my channel yet, so I'm a little concerned about that. But what we're going to cover today is there's about 6 things that Israel did. We could call them biblical/religious things that really didn't happen for the first time in about 2,000 years. Now, these things predominantly happened in 2020. I think they all did in 2023 and 2024. Pretty much around the October 7th, 2023. Some might have happened before. I'm going to go through them with you. They're pretty heavy duty, and I'm going to open it up with you with Bible prophecy and to kind of give you an insight as to what's going on. You can't just look at these things and say, oh, you got to have something's not cooking right here. Well, maybe it's me. Yeah, I think it's me. Let's see. It may not be me. So now I'm unsure if we're on the air or not. We got internet. I don't know. It looks like we're on the air, but I'm not being able to bring this up. I'm going to have to reboot this thing. So we'll keep talking. When we go through these things, which I'm going to do pretty quickly, is you have to understand that Israel is still has their eyes blinded and their ears stopped up so they wouldn't turn to him and get healed, because the redemption is when that happens, and that hasn't happened yet. So we gotta, leave room for that in what I'm going to reveal to you. Okay? Now, let me see if I can access the live stream like I'm used to doing now. I should be able to. And make sure everything's okay. It looks like it is. Let's check for sound. Yeah, it looks like we're good. We're good. I'm going to do, let's see, anything in the chat I need to deal with? No. I'm going to do a couple of quick posts up in the chat, and they're going to be real quick. It's a lot of airplanes in the sky. Of course, they're ours. You can hear them. Airplanes shoot down drones, sometimes missiles. We've been under heavy attack this morning from Lebanon, and Iraq is trying to join into the fracas too without much success. They tried to hit Netanyahu's house in Caesarea again this morning, but he's not there. I mean, everybody knows where Netanyahu's house is. It's like, not, it's like trying to find the Empire State Building in New York or something, I guess all they could hope for is to hit his house and say, oh, they did an assassination attempt. It's kind of a extremely feeble assassination attempt. It's not really an assassination attempt because he's not there. They don't have any, good way of getting him, and they don't know where he is. So it's kind of silly, I'm going to get my email address up and then we'll get going. You can send in prayer requests, toss requests, put scriptures in the chat, prayer requests in the chat, all these kind of things. I'm using an iPad. I'll move closer to it in a minute. There's not that much I can do to turn the mic up. I already turned it up. Okay, that's done. Let me get closer to the mic. That should help. All right. Being a Bible, I wear sunglasses because I spend a lot of time in the screen, in front of the screen. I got old eyes, and it helps. It polarize. They cut down a lot of the glare and other things. It's relaxing to my eyes. Okay. What I'm going to do now is do some praise, being a Bible-believing Old Testament, New Testament site. I'm going to do that. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so let me start with the news, current event things that, Yeshua told us to watch, and that's what I do. I give you the news with the Bible prophecies so you could watch correctly as to what's going on. China told America and Canada, because Canada and America moved some warships in the area roughly near Taiwan. They told them that they're in the near future going to conduct live fire drills near Taiwan. Okay. Now this is an extreme provocation, of course. I don't think they've done that before, maybe once or twice in the past months. I don't know. And they told America and Canada, you better not be there because you're likely to get hit by our live fire drills. So China is essentially chasing America and Canada warships away from Taiwan and threatening that they could be destroyed if they stay there. So they're trying to do like a no-fly zone in the ocean near Taiwan. If you think this is minor, think again, because what they're doing is they're telling America, if you're messing around with us, you're going to get your ships destroyed. That's the bottom line here. Now, North Korea is staging for war with South Korea. It's obvious. 700 artillery pieces and various types of missile launchers on the border with South Korea. They tried to lay landmines in the DMZ, and the South Koreans recently shot at them for doing this, so they abandoned it. They destroyed all the roads, railroads, bridges, and other access routes between North and South Korea. And the reason for this is really obvious to somebody that studies war, is they don't want South Korea coming in with their superior tanks and mobile artillery to shut down their artillery and missile launchers. Many of these artillery pieces are hidden in mountains in various places, and they roll them out on rails. They shoot a few shells, and then before you can get a good attack against the artillery piece, they go back in the mountain. They wait a little while, and they come out again. They got tons of these. They go 40 miles. They're rocket-propelled artillery. I understand they could put an artillery shell in every square meter for about 40 miles into South Korea. In other words, they could make South Korea look like Gaza in a matter of hours. And they don't want to experience a ground invasion where the tanks could get in really close proximity to where they are with the mountains and stuff like that and start shooting artillery shells at their artillery. So they're staged for war. China told their military prepare for war the other day. The last 3 or 4 days, 5 days maybe. Okay? Russia and Ukraine are battling it out. As I told you, what is really happening is Ukraine and Russia are destroying each other. Ukraine's a proxy for America and NATO. And it's okay if Ukraine gets destroyed. Millions have left Ukraine. They're not worried about that. They're not going to put Ukraine in NATO. And NATO is positioning itself to attack Russia in quite a few different locations on the borders with Russia. Now, you all know that we were told by the media, never had an official announcement from the Israeli government, that Hezbollah had all these massive amounts of missiles and they could decimate Israel and wipe us out and blah, blah, blah. And that proved to not be very true at all. They did a few months ago stage a 6,700 missile launcher attack, and we blew them up and destroyed the missile launchers before they could get it going. They were ready to go. They were setting it up, and we blew them up. So Israelis for many years were scared. Oh, Hezbollah, the boogeyman's going to wipe Israel out. We're going to look like a blown up parking lot, you know. And it never happened. Never happened. They like keeping Israel scared so Israel doesn't fulfill Bible prophecy and gather more land that God granted to Israel in a covenant, which goes from the Euphrates to the Nile, and that includes Lebanon. And there's many other prophecies about Lebanon. So they have not, they keep Israel in a scared mode. We were told many years ago, people were telling me, a lot of people die if we have a war with Hezbollah and all this stuff, right? Didn't work out that way. The IDF told us yesterday that Hezbollah is down to about 30% of its capacity before we really attacked them some weeks ago. The IDF is not in the habit of messing around like that, okay? They're really down to about 30%, but they did have a substantial number of missiles and rockets and anti-tank weapons as well. And, so they've got a lot left. So we're hitting them 24/7, round the clock. A lot of this stuff is put up around Beirut, and now we're hitting Beirut heavily. People in Beirut are freaking out. Prescriptions for sedative, anti-anxiety, sleeping medicines, this sort of stuff is flying high in Lebanon. The Lebanese people are not so innocent. Let me break this down for you, okay? I remember speaking to somebody who was a Christian/Catholic in Lebanon once, quite a while ago, and we talked about Israel, and this character was telling me, oh, Israel doesn't have a right to exist. Well, that's not exactly being a Christian, is it? They got Muslims, they got Catholics, they got Christians, they got Hindus, they got a whole spread of different people there. Hezbollah has penetrated the government. They hold offices in the government by election. And the government is scared to death of Hezbollah. The UNFIL troops, to preserve the UN mandate that there should be no Hezbollah weapons or anything from Hezbollah from the Litani River down to the border of Israel, 17 miles approximately, has not been enforced. The UN troops are favorable to Hezbollah, and they're cooperative human shields with Hezbollah. Okay, they are worthless. And they come from third world countries. They're not putting people there from Switzerland, UK, America. They're putting people from like Sri Lanka, crazy places. And a lot of them are probably Muslim. Hezbollah might be paying them off. The border area of southern Lebanon, now I couldn't tell you exactly how many miles in we're talking about, but I get the impression it's probably 8 or 12 or maybe to the Litani River. The houses and a lot of things are destroyed. It's like Gaza already. It looks like a dump. Now why, what about the Lebanese people? Let me tell you what the media doesn't tell you. Hezbollah has 50,000 soldiers. They get payroll. From where? From Iran and probably other Arab states, Qatar, and who knows who else. Okay? And Lebanon has had a horrible economy for a long time, and they have a very divided government, and they're currently in a risk of civil war. There's videos of Hezbollah soldiers being beaten up by regular Lebanese citizens. The army of Lebanon is afraid of them. I mean, you got to understand what Hezbollah will do is have direct confrontations with them on the battlefield. But what else will Hezbollah do? They'll send their agents or their soldiers to the houses of the soldiers in the government, probably the officers, and kill their families. What do you think they'll do? They're afraid of them. They'll blow the government up in Lebanon. Now, I don't think they have the capability, but they would have. So now Lebanon is starting to try to want to get out of this. Yeah, well, it's a little too late. So how did Lebanon benefit? 50,000 people running around well paid in Lebanon from Iran and others are helping the economy in Lebanon. They buy clothes, shoes, books, school supplies, food. They're feeding the economy. What else? Well, Hezbollah takes this money and they buy vehicles. They pay people to set the vehicles up to hold machine guns and other things, right? They buy buildings, which makes labor work. They buy supplies for the buildings. Houses, they buy houses and they put Hezbollah operatives in the houses by the south of Israel, and they move into the houses with their families and make it look like they're not violating the UN mandate because they're very, very close to the border with Israel. And they put missiles, anti-tank weapons, ammunition, machine guns, whatever, inside their houses. They build attics and they put them in upstairs, downstairs, basements, who knows what. So we had to go through destroying many, many, many houses that were owned and operated by Hezbollah. They were full of weapons. Hezbollah sent their families out of Lebanon weeks ago. They wound up in Iraq, I believe, going through Syria to Iraq. So Hezbollah is feeding the economy, and Iran is feeding Hezbollah. Probably Qatar, probably Saudi, maybe UAE. All these countries give money to the terrorists because they don't want trouble in their own country. Okay, now that's my understanding of it, okay? So now what happened? Well, we found that Nasrallah, who's now dead, built a big, we blew up the banks yesterday or the day before. The banks in Lebanon that was, in English, one was called Good Loans. Well, they're not so good anymore. They had 14 branches and we bombed them. That's how Hezbollah was distributing their money through their branches. Suitcases of cash were coming in from Iran. Well, There were flights from Iran to Beirut. How hard is it to a guy gets on with diplomatic passport from Iran? You know, 2 or 3 of them come with 4 or 5 suitcases, and you got millions of dollars in American currency inside Lebanon. They're using to pay the people, and they were using these banks to do distribution, maybe with ATM machines. I don't know how. They put the money in the bank, and the bank may have just electronically deposited it into their accounts. And then the Hezbollah employees and soldiers use the ATM card and take the money out. I don't know exactly how to do it, but there are probably 2 or 3 ways. That stopped. They can't get any more flights. Are curtailed. The money's not flowing. And if it does flow in, they're going to have to go sit down on a kitchen table someplace and count it out to the Hezbollah guys lining up. And that would be a target that would likely be bombed. You see a line of 250 Hezbollah soldiers waiting to get paid. I'm pretty sure we'd blow that whole thing up. So these loan companies are gone. This bank, as you might call it. Okay, they're gone. They got blown up. Now comes to our attention, under a hospital in Lebanon is a bunker. And in this bunker is a cash stash that Nasrallah was running, and it's estimated to have $500 million of U.S. currency in there. And that is the nest egg treasure chest of Hezbollah. Now, has Israel blown it up yet? No. It would require blowing up the hospital. The bombs aren't going to hit that bunker unless you destroy the hospital first. So if you hit the hospital with 10 or 12 2,000-pound bombs, or maybe even 6 or 8, then you would be able to start penetrating into the bunker and destroy the bunker. But there's 2 schools of thought here. One is, let's give the Lebanese an opportunity to go and steal the money from Hezbollah. To the best of my knowledge, it's not stealing. I mean, they could confiscate it. Hezbollah would call it theft, but so far that hasn't happened. I'm afraid I think for the same reasons, the Hezbollah operatives are afraid of getting killed. The Lebanese government, the army, is afraid of getting killed by the Hezbollah and their families. I don't think they're going to go rob the money. There's probably a handful of Hezbollah guys there guarding it now, maybe 8 or 10 or 20, and that would be a battle with them, and then Hezbollah would go into active warfare with the Lebanese government. Now, there is a very high risk of revolution right now or civil war in Lebanon. The Lebanon government proper, minus the Shiite factions from Hezbollah, would be warring against Hezbollah. Now that Hezbollah is substantially weakened and a lot of them are dead, this is becoming more attractive to Lebanon. But I think we're not close to that yet. We're still pretty far away, and we might see an attempt at a civil war against Hezbollah, so to speak, but I do not think it would be successful at all, based on Bible prophecy. Lebanon, open up your doors, let the cedars of Lebanon burn. Lebanon's going down, and we're going to be living there. And that's the Bible prophecy, and that's what's going to happen. We don't get all the little fine details as to how we get to the end result of the prophecy, but we know we're going to get there. Now, I'm not going to suggest holding your breath to see a civil war in Lebanon. It could be something pops up, but I don't think it'll be successful. I think it'll get curtailed. So the Lebanese people are going out of their minds. Oh, woe is us, woe is us. Well, they let these Jew killers that wanted to annihilate Israel operate Lebanon as a military base for about 20 years since the 2006 war with Lebanon. So, hey, they turned a blind eye to it. What do we care? It helps our economy. Hezbollah doesn't go around killing us. Yeah, we don't care. Let them kill the Jews. They're Jews. Who cares? That's where you have to look at it. In the media, it doesn't tell you that, but that's where you really have to look at it. Okay? Now, Israel may go and take the money out of that underground bunker under the hospital themselves. If Hezbollah goes and tries to pull the money out of there, I imagine there'll be an attack on Hezbollah. Israel has a vested interest in making sure that Hezbollah does not have that money. So we've killed their leaders, we killed Nasrallah, we killed Nasrallah's successor, and we killed the successor to Nasrallah's successor. And the next guy, number 4, took off and went to Iran to study the Quran. He knew he was going to get killed. And my understanding is now an IRGC general was sent from Iran, and he is running Hezbollah. Okay. Is that you?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
I'll clean the coffee up.
So that's what I understand now. Now we could kill. I'm going to shut the door. I'm going to be back in a second. Give me a second. We could kill that IRGC general, but it's not much of a big victory here because he'll just be replaced by another general a day or two later. It doesn't mean much. Be right back. I think it's important to understand that there are people around the world, not just in Lebanon, all over the place, that call themselves Christians, throw a cross around their neck, have a few Bibles laying around the house, they never study them, and they see Israel as a troublemaker and don't want to see Israel around, don't like the Jews, Christ killers. And, that's a lot of what you have in Lebanon. Now, are there real believers in Lebanon? I suppose there are. But there's, a lot of people. I mean, have you ever seen the Pope come out and say, we stand with Israel and condemn Hamas and Hezbollah and all, no. He doesn't give a hoot about Israel. You think he cares about Israel? Come on. Never heard him do anything for Israel. Surprised he doesn't send aid to Hamas and Hezbollah. Probably afraid to. Now, what Israel should do, and it could happen, because we're going to be in Beirut, and we're going to be on the ground, and we're going to be north of Beirut on the ground too. You watch. What they could do is go raid that place, take the $500 million, and distribute it to the people in the north of Israel that had their houses destroyed by Hezbollah, and repair the houses. $500 million, $500 million is going to go a long way. And that would teach Hezbollah and Iran a real lesson, and that's what should be done. But they are leaving the door open for the Lebanese government to take it, but they don't have any guts. Or they don't really care about Hezbollah. Why did they let it grow into what it grew? What they really want is they want NATO, America, or anybody to come in with, 30 or 50,000 troops and 800 tanks and 150 planes and wipe out Hezbollah, which is what Israel is doing. But they're not going to go pro-Israel. They're not, there's a few people we hear on social media in Lebanon, they say they're doing us a favor, they're getting rid of Hezbollah, but, come on, All right, that's your Lebanon. So you've got a lot of tension up there. Biden supposedly told Netanyahu, don't bomb Lebanon, but it came out later that that was not real. That was fabricated in the media. In other words, Biden never really did say that. Let me check the chat real quick if I got questions or... Let's see. You call people covetous, yet you love material things. Projecting 101. Okay. So a little spiritual warfare here on this person, and I call people covetous, the ones that come and listen to me and never give an offering. That's what I call, because they're breaking God's system. You shall not muzzle the ox while he treads the grain. While I'm treading the grain, giving you the spiritual things, and you don't give of the carnal things. And that's against the Bible. Okay? If nobody supported me at all, what would I do? I would be having to work in secular pursuits instead of this to keep myself fed, wouldn't I? Then I would never share the spiritual things, and then you're thwarting God's system. Okay? So that's what I really say, and that's what I really mean, and I don't think you really care about the Bible at all. You might say you do, but you don't. Well, you wouldn't say a thing like that. God calls that robbing God, by the way. Not that I think you care about that. I call people like the third world that they are not humans. I don't think I do that. We just got a guy coming in here, some spot or something like that. I'll just get rid of him. He's just an idiot. Most of the UN troops there are Irish, not most, some, and they absolutely don't like Israel. Have you seen how Ireland is anti-Israel lately? You should check it out. Oh, we got all the trolls in here this morning. Okay, I dumped the trolls. They always come in the beginning. So we got, let's talk about, I told you NATO stays on Russia's border already, and NATO is ready at a drop of a hat to send a large amount of troops into Ukraine. One thing good that these trolls do is they propagate the chat, which shows interaction and helps me with YouTube, so that's nice of them. But some of them just get, they like children, you liar, you snake, See, the other reason people are covetous is they don't want to give themselves. They rely on others to give. It stems back to if they don't work, they don't eat. And they think that that's okay with the Lord and it's not wrong. And they'll find out. God loves a cheerful giver. Where does it say God loves a covetous tightwad? So, the nations of the world, like America, we'll start with them, are saying, oh, we want you to de-escalate. Israel, de-escalate. We want a treaty with Hamas. We want a treaty with Hezbollah. Biden keeps sending Blinken over here to negotiate various treaties. He's coming back to the Middle East again. People are saying that means there's not going to be a fight between Israel and Iran while he's in the Middle East. And I say, don't count on it at all. That at this point means very little of anything. All right, so, Biden never changed Blinken. Blinken never succeeded with any of this ceasefires or anything, de-escalations, and he doesn't fire them. Well, that's because Blinken probably wasn't supposed to succeed. When you look at America's words, oh, we don't want a war with Iran, we don't want a regional war. Well, Iran is saying the same thing. Yet, it's completely obvious, if you've got eyes to see and ears to hear, that Iran has stirred the pot to create this regional war knowingly. They had their proxy Yemen with their weapons, missiles, money, support, training, advisors, attack all the shipping in the Red Sea. From shipping companies that had no Israeli ownership at all. Because they might have gone to Israel or came from Israel with a load, then they'd penalize the entire shipping line like Hague and the big ones by attacking all their ships. And that's Iran's puppet. If Iran called them up on the phone and said, stop it, they'd stop it. That's provoking a regional war in my book. You could classify it however you want, but that's how I see it. It's a regional war. They wanted Hamas attacking Israel, wanted to stir the pot. Hezbollah attacking Israel, stir the pot. Their militias in Iraq and Syria are attacking Israel, stir the pot. Their militias in Iraq and Syria are attacking the American bases dozens and dozens of times since October 7th. They're stirring the pot. What the heck do you think? And then the second big missile attack in Israel was not to promote a regional war? Are you serious? You believe that? You can't pay a lot of attention to what comes out of their mouth. Look at their actions. Iran's actions are, we want a regional war. We want to emerge the king of the Middle East and control the oil. And then when Iran controls the oil through fear, they can break the back of Europe and America by doing two things, telling the states, cut your production down 10%, 10%, 10% every month until it's way down, and raise your prices, or you just cut the production and the prices go up. I break the back of the Middle East, plus the money they get for selling oil goes up, and the money Russia gets for selling oil goes up. Now, Saudi Arabia has announced they're going to do military exercises with Iran, I believe naval exercises with Iran. A few months ago, Saudi Arabia said they're not going to sell oil for US dollars or euros. Saudi has gone over to Iran. Saudi has gone over to Iran. Saudi will join Brics, I'm rather sure of it. And that would require no longer selling oil or natural gas for US dollars and probably for euros, but definitely US dollars. Saudi probably realized America backing them against Iran would be a failure because look how they back Israel. Okay? So Saudi got scared. Yemen could attack the Saudi oil refineries, their palaces, and probably Syria and Iraq as well, plus Iran. And they're sitting there thinking, oh, $100,000 houses that are worth $2 billion will be blown up. You know, my collection of, 700 Rolexes and Patek Philippe's will get blown up. You know, my $3 million Bugattis will be blown up, right? That's Saudi. And it's in Jeremiah 49. Maybe I could find it for you. It's called Dedan, which is Saudi Arabia. Let me get it for you. They're going to get it. They've gone to Iran. When they're holding military exercises with Iran, they intend to use their military along with Iran's. Saudi has turned against America, and there's a very strong chance the UAE will also. Those two work in tandem. Now, I can't say that may come to an end because the UAE may be not comfortable doing that. They don't have the imminent threat from Yemen. Months ago, Yemen attacked the Aramco oil refinery in Saudi Arabia twice, once with one missile, the other second time with two missiles, and they caused substantial damage to it. The first time they fixed it in a week, and the second time it took a little bit longer. But what happens if Yemen throws 30 missiles and drones at their oil refineries? Well, then it'll take a year to fix it, or 2 years. And Saudi does not believe America will be able to stop that, as evidenced by America, UK, and Israel air attacks on Yemen, numerous ones, and they're still occasionally able to fire missiles and attack a ship. Maybe every 2 weeks now they attack a ship. All right, let me find where I am in Jeremiah 49. Well, Jeremiah 49 is not a scripture ignored by the churches anymore. It's ignored by a lot of the churches, but not all of them. Concerning the Ammonites, that's Jordan. Thus saith Jehovah, hath Israel no sons, no heir? Okay, we've covered all this recently. Let me see if I could find Dedan, and if not, I'll just move on. Let me just move on. It's in Jeremiah 49. If you read it, you'll read about a lot of what's going to happen in the coming days, it looks like, not months, days, even hours. All right. Iran is coming forth with threats steadily now. Why? They're scared to death. What are they scared of? Well, what you might not know is Israel doesn't reveal all its missiles. Israel has not used all of its military might against Hezbollah, Yemen, and Hamas. predominantly we're using bombs, artillery, bullets, you know. Of course we use our jets, but and drones a little bit and helicopters, but we've never really revealed all our might. Israel has all kinds of aerial weapons, missiles, if you will, that we don't use because we don't have to use them. Okay? We have a series of Jericho missiles that could hit Iran. We've been making these missiles for 30 years. I don't know how many we have. It's conceivable we might have more than 1,000. I don't know. We might have 200. I don't know. Iran did their 180 missile attack some weeks ago and caused next to no damage. Every time we turn around, Iran is threatening the other Arab states in the region that if they help Israel or let Israel fly over their airspace, they'll consider them allies of Israel and attack them. And then some of them have gone to Iran and said, no, we're not going to let them fly over our airspace. But they do it in such a way, they say nobody can fly over our airspace. So they're saying they don't want Iran flying over their airspace with drones and missiles either. That's their statement. Okay, they can't really stop us, especially our stealth jets. There's none of them that could. Now, the last attack, there was help coming to do takedowns of incoming projectiles from us from some Arab states. And now Iran is saying, well, you know, if Israel's going to attack us, we're going to attack every oil-producing country in the region of the Middle East, and we're going to cause shortages, crazy spikes in prices. People are saying even up to $500 a barrel. Some are saying $350 a barrel. I used to draw the line at $200, but maybe I am wrong, and it might go up that high. This is to stop the Arab states from doing anything at all to help Israel and America. Okay? Anything whatsoever, including allowing the use of their airspace. Don't think that these countries are not getting mad at Iran threatening them. And don't think that these countries are sitting there thinking that if Iran wins, they're not going to overrun these countries minimally politically, like make the kings, emirs, and dictators and so forth into puppets of Iran, because they will. They will do that. And then they will control oil. And America knows that, and that's what America wants to stop. They control the oil. And they want that oil paid for with American dollars, which Iran doesn't want. Russia and China and North Korea want Iran to prevail because they're all in this axis together. So when you hear Biden saying de-escalation, de-escalation, he wants this war. And it's coming on right before the election. How curious. And Iran's making nukes, and Iran's saying the wrong things. We're going to have nukes soon, we'll blow your heads off, you know. Well, that's going to be the cause of the attack. Now, Israel's going to hit the oil fields and refineries in Iran. Why? Because Israel operates as a puppet state or a proxy of America. Not in the same way that Ukraine does, but still as a proxy. And America wants this because they don't want this digital currency that Brics has got. They don't want Iran selling their oil using that digital currency payment transfer system called Brics Pay, because that means Iran beats the sanctions completely, and they don't want that. Okay? They don't want Brics to succeed. They cannot let Brics succeed. If they bust Iran out of functioning and out of oil and natural gas, it helps them significantly because Brics looks not credible anymore. The next thing they got to do is hit Russians' oil refineries and would take Russia out. And NATO is positioning to do that right now. China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran know that the only way they're going to survive this thing is to be unified in their attack against America. Now, America is called the daughter of Babylon. The actual Hebrew word is Babel, not Babylon, and that means confusion. But there was an original Babylon that Israel was exiled into for 70 years. And the way that came to an end is this bad king in Babylon didn't want to let the Israelis go after the 70 years. So God raised up Cyrus, who came in and destroyed Babylon. And how did Cyrus do it? He came to attack the walls of Babylon with his army, and they were big, thick walls. They were so thick they had chariots on the walls that they would drive around Babylon. They had the whole city walled in. People would go out at night, go into fields, do what they had to do, and then when the sun started going down, they would come back to Babylon. And they had to get in by night time, and then they would shut the door. And I imagine they had the big gates, they had a moat, I believe. I think it was a moat, but the big gates got closed. They were very heavy gates. And then the soldiers probably manned one or two doors, like the size of a regular door or something, that somebody could go through. If they came at night and there were soldiers, for instance, or maybe the doors were actually pretty big, but they weren't the great big gates. For soldiers or diplomats coming, or just people that got stuck outside or whatever, right? So Cyrus tried to attack the walls, and the Babylonians were laughing at them. They actually repelled them because they could have archers in the thousands or hundreds shooting arrows down at the invading army. So the Babylonians withdrew. Cyrus withdrew his forces. And then he took the water. Babylon saved probably years' supplies of food inside the walls, which was probably various types of grain and other things, right? So the people could eat for an extended period of time. Maybe they had 2 or 3 years worth, I don't know, in case somebody laid a siege against them. So their economy would come to a slowdown. The people would stay inside the walls. The soldiers would be on alert. And the people would get food rations from the government, and they wouldn't be eating steak and really deluxe foods, but they would be they'd be full at night. They wouldn't have children crying for an empty belly. They just wouldn't be having the good food they were used to. It would just be dried food, seeds, grains, things like that, dehydrated vegetables maybe. And they had a river going under the big walls of Babylon into Babylon, so they had a constant supply of water. So they could take buckets and bathe, they had drinking water, they could make soups, whatever they wanted. So they were just going to wait the Cyrus's army out until he went away. They figure eventually his army's going to wear out. They're living outside in the street. They're not in shelters. And in the meantime, they would harass them. If they were close to the walls, they'd shoot arrows at them, fire arrows. The first day when Cyrus tried attacking them, they opened up the gates and came out and fought against them and repelled them. So Cyrus took his army and had them divert the river going under Babylon into 28 little tributary streams. So the water was no longer rushing to the pathway that went under the gate into Babylon, or under the wall. And in a matter of hours, that riverbed dried up. I don't think it was bone dry, but the soldiers were able to walk into Babylon under the wall and the bridge, the gates and everything. They just walk underneath it. And when the people in Babylon woke up in the morning and went out to their verandas and patios to have their servants serve them breakfast, and they saw that their entire city was occupied by enemy soldiers and they were taken over. So what did we have here? Did we have sleeper agents in the old Babylon? Well, I wouldn't say that's accurate at all. But they got invaded inside their country, and that's what this Biden situation with the open borders has done. America's already been invaded. 30 to 50 million, depending who you want to listen to, using the 30 million figure, and 60 to 70% are military-age males. So go with the 30 million at 60%, and you got 18 million military-age males. And that's going to be used against America. America's in a snare. Jeremiah 50, verse 24. I'll read it to you. I've read this so many times, but let me do it again. I have laid a snare for thee, that's Jehovah's laid a snare for thee, the daughter of Babylon, America, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and taken. Okay, what's that word taken? Captured, seized, laked. And how does Strong's put it in English? Let's see. To capture or occupy. So they're occupied. They are already occupied. And thou wast not aware. Thou art found. So when it says thou art not aware, I don't think Biden was really doing what he did with the open borders to have the country getting taken out. I think he could have done it because Biden wanted to change the whole scope of America and move it to Sharia law or something like that, or communism, or more likely just want to get a lot of votes for the Democrats because they're able to find states that let them vote. And thou wast not aware. So again, they're not aware of what they were doing. Thou art found, and also, let's take a look at where. Let's check all the Hebrew words here. Okay, that yoda, that means no, or it doesn't mean aware. It's used, anilo yoda means I don't know. It's a common phrase in Israel, so it really means you did not know. Where it says was not, nah, that's not it's no. The word there is one word, it means low. It's no. And thou, you could say thou in Old English, or you. It says here, for thee and thou art also. Well, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words in English for one Hebrew word, which is gam, which means also, or again. So the also is correct. So it says here, I have laid a snare. 1, 2, 3, 5 words. And the one Hebrew word is yakash, which is ensnared or snared. So it's, you could say snared, also captured, invaded, O Babylon. And then it says, you know, no, you don't know. Thou art found. Well, let's see what Strong's uses for English. It's not so off. It's pretty close. Let's check Strong's. We could go and find, I guess. Thou art found and also caught. Yeah, the gam word for also, and the court word is probably rather accurate, but let me check Strong's. Gosh, this thing's annoying. Court. Manipulate, seized, captured. Yeah, caught, captured. Because thou hast striven. Well, the word for striven is to stir up, strife. Let's see what Strong's does with this. iPad's oversensitive today or something. Angered, striven, angered. Jehovah. The next verse is, Jehovah hath opened his armory and hath brought forth the weapons of his anger or indignation, for this is the work of Adonai, Jehovah of armies, in the land of the Chaldeans. So the Chaldeans were the witches, the soothsayers, the fortune tellers, these kind of people in the old Babylon. And that's a lot of what America is in the, the witches. They're in motion pictures, entertainment, music, government, running companies. Right now, the snare against the daughter of Babylon, America, is really tight. North Korea is getting ready to hit South Korea. China's positioned to hit Taiwan. Japan and Guam and the Philippines will be dragged into this, possibly Australia. Then we go to Europe, and the situation there is extremely obvious. Russia and some stand countries in Belarus are poised to attack Ukraine more aggressively, as well as Poland, Romania, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Sweden, Denmark, Norway. They told us how potent Hezbollah was, and it wasn't. They've told us how potent Russia is, and by the way they're behaving against Russia, I don't think so. And the way Russia is behaving against them, I don't think Russia is anywhere near as powerful as most people think they are. No, I don't. I don't believe it. They've weakened Russia using Ukraine to do so, run their weapons supplies down. The drones that Iran sent to Russia, which I think were 15,000 a while ago, quite a while ago, Russia's said they're just about worthless. They practically all get shot down by Ukraine. Russia's lost so many tanks, soldiers, trucks, arms depots. I mean, Russia's gotten a shellacking. For months, Ukraine is occupying something like 130 square kilometers of land inside Russia, in Mother Russia. Using drones, Russia attacks Moscow, St. Petersburg. They've blown up oil refineries. They've taken out ships in the Black Sea. Russia's busted up. Russia is trying to get Brics going to crush America. America puts the sanctions on Russia, Iran, North Korea, China, Cuba, Venezuela, their whole gang, and also Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, So Iran sees itself as fighting for its existence, and they're right. The same with Russia. China and North Korea are joining into this fracas because they know if they let America pick off Iran and Russia, they're next. And they know that their chance of survival is extremely higher if North Korea, China, Russia, Iran go after America right away, and NATO. This is the best chance of their success. They don't know what else to do. looks like now we're coming down to the wire, and China's positioning itself. They're saying, oh, we're going to do a live fire drill in Taiwan. Don't be in the area or you'll get hit. Well, how do we know that live firing drill isn't going to just flop over into attacking Taiwan, which could come in the form of a blockade initially? You know, what's nice about a blockade is it scares America. It's reversible because it's just a blockade. And they could see how strong America wants to go at them for this. If Taiwan blockades, if China blockades Taiwan, do you really think America's going to start a big war over that? I don't. Attacking or invading Iran would do it. Please keep the prayers coming from my jaw. It keeps going in and out a little bit. I keep trying to get it in place, and then it stays in place, and then later it goes out. I don't know why. Let me check the chat. Yes, the rabbis in Israel are Talmudists. Well, someone gave me a heart sameach. I think you need to know that the rabbis operate on a completely different calendar from the Bible. While they use actual biblical holidays, they set the dates generally months far away from what the real dates are. But I appreciate the gesture. Thank you. Why would I want to say Hashem? That means the name. That's an effort for the rabbis to blot God's name out. It's Jehovah. That's clearly in the scriptures. That's what I use, Jehovah. Why do you want to blot God's name out? Where's the scripture that says you can't say God's name? There is no such thing. It's in the Talmud, but the Talmud contradicts the Bible. The Mishnah, Gemara, I've read those things. They make precious little sense. What they teach the people is that Moses gave them the oral law secretly, and they converted it into a written law, how conveniently, whereas the written law in the Bible books was given to the Goyim, not to them, not to the Jews. Now, there's nothing in the scripture that goes for that, and I don't buy it. So I stick with the Old and the New Testament. Okay? I don't go with the Talmud. I don't know where in the world they came up with that. It does contradict the deep principles of the Bible. It contradicts the prophets, the law. It contradicts the New Testament teachings. I don't go for it at all. So if you want to, that's not my business. I suggest you don't, but it's up to you. And there's no scripture anywhere in the prophets, in the Psalms, anywhere where you're not allowed to say Jehovah's name. It does not exist. It says in the Old Testament, I believe, they shall call on the name of the Lord in Jerusalem and be saved. Yasha, salvation is what it really means, not saved. But How are you going to call on the name of the Lord if you're going to go around saying Hashem, the name? Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to teach that to people? All right, let me start. So, the world is at its worst point probably ever in the history of the world. I don't know, but it looks that way to me. North Korea is poised to strike at the drop of a hat, as is China, as is Russia, as is Iran. So you'd have a big, massive front in Europe, a big, massive front in the Middle East, and a big, massive front in the Asia-Pacific region. All at the same time. That's the worst I ever saw. I think it's the worst we ever had, period. I don't think we ever had it any worse. Now let's go to a list of things. I think it's 6 or 7 things that happened in Israel in 2023 and 2024 for the first time in 2,000 years. Now that should be exciting to you. It's definitely interesting and it's stimulating, and I'll try to unravel it for you, okay, with Bible prophecy. What I think is going to happen, the end game here, is God is going to deliver Israel from these wars and pay back the heathen nations badly, okay? And then Elijah's going to be here openly, along with Apostle John, and they're going to be preaching the good news, the true gospel. And the people in Israel that have been doing, amulets and idols and, the horn cursing and the evil eye where they pull down or they pull up, all those curses and following, the books of witchcraft and doing bad things, are going to be given a chance to repent because they're going to see the signs and wonders. Just like when Yeshua came, he displayed massive signs and wonders to let the people know God's around, he's up there, he's with you, he wants to save you, but you've got to walk according to the manufacturer's handbook, also known as the Bible. Okay? And that's the reality, because that's the only way people are going to live in a blessed state with the Lord. They're going to be a blessing to their friends, their neighbors, and their countrymen in Israel. That's it. That's the only way it works. So Yeshua was there to preach the law, the prophets, the New Testament things, new things. And he was doing tremendous signs and wonders, including coming back from the dead, to show the people. But when he came back from the dead, he only showed himself to believers, I believe that, And also the dead came up out of their tombs and showed themselves to many around Jerusalem. But those were probably just believers that they showed themselves to. So remember the scripture with the rich guy that's in the pit, and he looks across the chasm that no one could cross, and he sees the poor beggar that used to sit outside his door with Father Abraham in paradise. And he says, send this guy to dip his finger in water and put a drop on my tongue because it's so hot here. And Father Abraham said, no, he can't cross to you and you can't cross to him. And Father Abraham recognized him as a descendant of his own. He was calling him my son. And he told him, you had the good things in life, and the beggar fella had the bad things. Now you get the bad, and he gets the good. Because most of the rich, if not all, resort to witchcraft, sorcery, serving the unclean spirits to get the wealth. Not every single person, but I mean, it's the ones that are the kingpins do it that way. So the guy said, send them back to my brothers so they'll know what happens to them if they don't repent. And Father Abraham said, they have Moses and the prophets, let them read them. If they're not going to believe Moses, they're not going to believe even if one came back from the dead. So what Yeshua was actually doing was bolstering and building up the faith of those that were believers in their heart about Yeshua, so they would spread the gospel throughout the world, which happened. 350 years after Yeshua was raised from the dead, Constantine started the church, which was a mess, and still is. It was a horrible mess. It evolved into the Catholics with the persecution and the tortures and the Inquisition, and it's just been a mess the whole time. Okay, so the similar thing is going to happen. Yeshua is not coming down to earth, but Elijah will be. And he'll be doing massive amount of signs and wonders, including burning up the enemies of Israel, which is found in Zechariah 12:6, clear as day. Elijah and Apostle John will be the judges of Israel. In Isaiah 1, Isaiah says that God's going to run Israel with the judges, just as at the first, which was Moses and Aaron, who were judges and prophets. In Revelation 11, explains, of course, that Elijah and Apostle John are prophets. Revelation, that John is told, you must prophesy again to many people. He's definitely a prophet. And Elijah, of course, is a prophet. All right. So you see Elijah training the Levites to make the offerings unto Jehovah acceptable again, which brings the blessings of the law on Israel, and thus explains the victory of Zechariah 12:6, when the two witnesses burn up all the enemies surrounding Israel and they would lay siege to them. Now the Jewish people know, the Jewish people that follow the synagogues and the rabbis know a lot of this. They know it. They know there's going to be another temple. It's the church that runs around with no more temples. We're the temple. You're the temple of the Holy Spirit if you're a believer, not the temple with an altar and priesthood giving sacrifices and offerings. Yeshua said, and they don't listen to him. He said it in Matthew 5. Think not that I came to destroy the law or the prophets, for I came to fulfill. For as long as there's a heaven and earth, not one jot or tittle shall be done away with from the law. The one that breaks the least of these mitzvah commandments shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven, but the one that teaches them all and does them all will be great in the kingdom of heaven. It's very clear. The law is not done away with. This is something the church created, just like they decided on their own that they're going to move the Shabbat to Sunday, which is the first day of the week. The days of the week in Hebrew are numbered, except for Yom Shabbat. Yom means day. Shabbat begins in what the Hebrew calls the Erev, which is a mixing. The Arab language is Arabit, which means a mixing, because you had Sarah, the slave girl, and Abraham, the father, and that's where that kind of comes from. So what it really isn't sundown, it really is when there's still daylight. If you drop the quarter on the floor, you could still see it. The shadows are long. It's the mixing of the day and the night, but they use sundown. Anyway, let's move off that, just so I explain it to you. So Friday at Erev, you shift over from Yom Shishi, the 6th day of the week, to Yom Shabbat, the day of Sabbath, the 7th day of the week, which is from, you want to call it sundown. It's not dead accurate, but it's approximate anyway. From sundown from Friday to sundown on Saturday. There's no anything in the Bible that gives them the right to move it, because it stems back to God and the making the creation of the whole universe. He rested on the seventh day, and that's the Shabbat. And you can't take the Shabbat and throw it over to Sunday. But if you were worshiping Tammuz, the sun god, whose birthday is December 25th in their phony tales, what better day to worship the sun god Tammuz on other than Sunday? All this stuff, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, these are made up words. In Hebrew, the first day of the week is what the world calls Sunday. It's called Yom Rishon, the first of the week or the head of the week. And then you got day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, and then day 7, which is not day 7, it's day Shabbat. And they do away with that. And they have no basis in scripture whatsoever to do it. They just do it. And the people put up with it. I don't know why, but they put up with it. Okay? The Jews don't. The Jews cling to Shabbat. God blinded their eyes and stopped up their ears, lest they turn to him and be healed. Because Hosea 6:1 and 2, the punishment for 2 days, which Peter said 1,000 years is like a day unto the Lord, for 2,000 years has to come to pass for killing the Messiah. And guess what? Time's up. Now we're in the year of recompenses. And look at what's happening to the enemies of Israel. They're getting recompensed, paid back on their heads. Okay? Hamas is really busted up. America's keeping them from Israel, or Israel would just demolish them. Hezbollah is busted up badly. Yemen is not able to go running around launching missiles at boats whenever they want to anymore, are they? Maybe once every 2 weeks, if that, they go after a boat. And that might not even be the case anymore. It may be once every 3 or 4 weeks. Syria's been busted up. Iraq, not really. And Iran, not really. But give it a little time. In Jeremiah 49, there's a prophecy against Elam. Elam consists basically of Iran, southwestern Iran, and parts of Iraq and parts of Syria. So you could basically call it Iran, Iraq, and Syria. They get busted up so bad by their enemies in the plural, not just Israel, that all the people from these countries leave and go into a diaspora to every nation in the world. So that happens before Jeremiah 30:11. Jeremiah 30:11, which is associated with the birth of the nation in a day, which is associated with Yeshua appearing in the heavens, which is associated with the moon will turn to blood and the sun will go dark, just so you understand those are tied together. So the destruction of Elam is going to happen very, very, very soon, and you're watching it now. You're watching the very beginning of it, getting it going. So what likely will happen is those Iranian schmucks will attack American bases. They will attack oil refineries in the Middle East. Iraq and Syria will help them. Yemen will help them. Yemen gets it. Yemen is Edom. Taman means the south. It's Edom. It goes. Okay? And Jordan is likely going to turn against us too before this is over. So you're going to see Iran get it. And Iran is stupid. You could call them the stupids. They're delusional. But let's go back to what happened for the first time in 2,000 years, which I think you're really going to enjoy. After America and other countries do the tap dance on Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and Iran, then America's going to get it because it's the daughter of Babylon. And there's a scripture in Jeremiah where it says America will do evil in our sight. And then you'll see the next great exodus. But let's go into what happened for 2,000 years. Didn't happen for 2,000 years because it's really exciting, I think. A silver trumpet was sounded on the Temple Mount as a war cry by, I believe it was a Levite or a Kohanim. Now, the Temple Mount Institute made the silver trumpet, I'm quite sure. And it would have been real solid 0.999 silver or 997 or something like that. Almost super pure silver, right? I don't think you could have, 1.00 silver. I think it's never 100%. It's probably 99%. Anyway, look. What I'm saying is not that they were trying to make an insult to the Lord, but I just don't think there is such a thing as 100% silver. I think you get up to 97, 99%, that's it. But okay, that's just me. I'm not a metallurgist. All right, so that hadn't happened in about 2,000 years. There were Levites singing songs, biblical songs like Psalms, on the Temple Mount. Also, the Levites were doing the Kohanim blessings on the soldiers of Israel, laying hands on their head that when they were going to war. That's the first time we didn't see that in 2,000 years. Also, a shofar was blown on the Temple Mount for the first time in about 2,000 years. Now, the Temple Mount is not exactly the best site for the temple. Let me just say, the actual temple would be like where the Pool of Siloam was, I believe, which is 800 or 900 feet away. It's not like 8 miles away, it's feet away, so they're calling it the Temple Mount. It's close to the Temple Mount. I don't think it's actually the Temple Mount. Temple Mount was dismantled by soldiers many centuries ago. Invading enemy. There's more. Kohanim actually went up on the Temple Mount. One was actually, Kohanim's a descendant of Aaron, as most of you know, I'm one of those. Went up on the Temple Mount dressed in priestly garments, not high priest, not Kohen Gadol, but just Kohanim garments, on the Temple Mount for the first time in 2,000 years. I don't know if that stuff came from the Temple Mount Institute or may not have, I don't know. And when he got up there, he did the Kohanim blessing, which I'm going to do for you guys later. They held a Rosh Hashanah full service on the Temple Mount, which hadn't been done in 2,000 years. Rosh Hashanah is not really a biblical holiday either, so it probably was never done back then. Also in 2024, these things happened in 2023 and 2024, so you could think about October 7th forward. There also was a time when the rabbis in Israel held a meeting on the Temple Mount to discuss the law, the Jewish law, for the first time in 2,000 years. Remember, the Jews know there's going to be another temple. They know that it's in Malachi 3. They know the glory of God of Israel. The church doesn't know who the glory of God of Israel is by and large. The Israelites know, That's who was with Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. They know in Exodus 23 verse 20 it says Jehovah put his name, Jehovah, in this particular angel. Of course that allows them to receive the sacrifices and offerings for Jehovah. Okay, I believe it's Michael or Michael in English, the highest angel. And he will go into the temple, which is a house made without human hands, and reside there. And they know that too. They know this. The church doesn't, they do. They're expecting another temple. When they see Yeshua in the clouds and he pours his spirit out on them in Zechariah 12:10, boom, that's it. Now you're in redemption. They have everlasting life, which is not that they can't die. They live a great deal of years like they did before the flood. They lived over 900 years. It'll be much longer than that this time because we get a double portion. They know that. They know their land goes from the Euphrates to the Nile. What would the nations have to do, in my opinion, to make peace with Jehovah at this point? They'd have to get Israel all their land back. And that would, I think, create a tremendous amount of shalom or peace between the heathen nations and Jehovah. Do you think they're going to do that? I would give it a 99.999999999% chance they never would. I don't want to say never because I'm not God, but I would say forget it. I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for that. They want us to give up more land. They're not giving us land. So that ain't happening, okay? They're getting ready for the next temple and the Levites and the Kohanim. That's what they're getting ready for. And they know they're getting ready for that. They have issues as to who the Messiah is, but they're getting ready for the next temple. See, a lot of them are going to make it. God says, like the simple, the poor, the meek, they're going to make it. A lot of the Orthodox are poor, practically all of them. And you might be shocked as to how zealous for God they will be when they get redemption and they know what's going on. I mean, you see them in Zechariah 12 mourning so much, God has to snap them out of the mourning. Because they feel so bad about what they did. They're zealous for the Lord, but they don't know, their eyes are still blinded and their ears are stopped up. They don't got it yet. But they'll get it, and they'll be very zealous, and they'll go to war for God. And we will fight. We see it in the scriptures all over the place. We will fight. A lot of the people that come out of the church world, believers, you say, well, we're going to fight for Israel, Well, the expression they say for God and country. Well, let's phrase it correctly. For Jehovah, Yeshua, Yisrael. Okay? For Father God, Jehovah, for our Messiah, the King of Israel, and for Israel. Oh, you won't have any trouble convincing them to fight. Try explaining it to some of the church people. The church people will catch on, but you got to read them the scriptures and stuff. And the church people are running around, there's never going to be a temple. The only temple we're going to have is the rabbis are going to build an apostate temple for the beast. They're so wrong. The Jews are waiting for Elijah. When they have the Pesach dinner, they have chairs with Elijah's name embroidered in it. They leave a dinner plate with silverware for Elijah. They pour him a glass of wine, and if it's safe, they leave their door open for Elijah to come in. They can't wait for Elijah. Elijah's like one of the big things to come. Oh, he's going to teach them who the Messiah is, but they're going to still adore him. They're going to love Elijah. They've been raised to do so, and they want to do so. How much more these branches grafted into their own branch or their own tree, whatever the words are in Roman 11. See, when they come in, boy, they're going to come in. Oh, you're going to love them. When they come in, you're going to love them. They'll be so on fire. You will too, but you're going to really get along with them. Now, all the stuff that the Israelites are doing on the Temple Mount area, which that's fine with me that they did the stuff. Okay, great, actually. But to the Muslims, it confirms their crackpot demonic doctrines from the Quran that teaches them that the Dajjal is going to come, and the Dajjal is like the beast in the New Testament that's going to come. Satan has Schofield and Darby, and he took a rendition of that and gave it to the Muslims. Not verbatim, but it's similar. So he's teaching the Muslims that the Jews are going to go for a false Messiah, which is the Dajjal. And he's going to convince the Jews that they have to rip down the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque and put the temple up there, and then that they should go around and kill the Muslims. So he's raised a race of Satan's chosen people, the violent terrorist Muslims that want to kill Israel and the Jews. That's the weapons of Satan's warfare, based on lies and deceptions and murder. But you better understand that the world today, right now, as you're listening to this, is in the worst state it ever has been, at least in the last 2,000 years. The amount of destruction that will go forth when these wars break out is just incredibly amazing. War has never reached a pinnacle like this. The capability for massive destruction in minutes, hours, days is so high. World War II was nothing like this. Nothing. Nothing like it. I never heard of a 2,000-pound bomb being used commonly in World War II. They had 100-pounders, 250s. They had 500-pounders. That was about it. They didn't have these JDAM guided bombs. They didn't have missiles and rockets and to any extent what we have today. Nothing like that. Submarines launching missiles from under the surface, that was unheard of. Planes going at, way over the speed of sound, unheard of. Stealth planes, unheard of. I mean, all the stuff we have, cyber attacks, unheard of. Tanks with such good armor, unheard of. We didn't have that stuff. In those days, a tank was sort of a scary thing to be in World War II because it couldn't take an artillery shell with a direct hit anyway. And bazookas would take the tank out if they got a good hit on a bazooka. It would knock the tank out. I bought the neck stretchers in the past, all they did was make my neck worse. I don't know why it's over here. It keeps clicking in and out of joint. I worried that people are rooting for the Jews and Palestinians to both lose. I don't care what people think. I'm worried about what God thinks. I'm not concerned what people think that they want all to lose. I don't care what they say. A major portion of the world is going to be gone soon. Let me read you the scripture, Jeremiah 30, verse 11. For I am with thee, saith Jehovah, to save thee. And that's talking to Israel. Now, the word for save is not really save. It's Yesha. Well, let me get to the real text. Hold on. I want to look at this in the Hebrew. Give me a minute. Okay. What's my place? It really means to salvation, you would say. Okay. It doesn't really mean saved. It's like the salvation you. Okay. It's the way they did it in English is too soft. It's not as strong. Okay. So it's saying for ani at you could say with key, yeah, okay, for I with um yeah, I'm with uttering or speaking or Jehovah to salvation the then he's saying he asa, what does Strong's do with asa? could say make a full end. Let's check that word for full end in the Hebrew. Yeah, completion, an end. You could say, let's see what Strong's actually. Consumption, destruction, that's a little more accurate. But full end sort of gets there anyway. Of all, and that word should be call, which means all, heathen nations, whither, with a which, I guess we would say, W-H-I-C-H, which I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. So all the nations that Jehovah scattered the Israelites into since 70 AD, basically, and before, Babylon and Egypt. See, but those were what you would call a selective diaspora. They all were in Egypt, they all were in Babylon. But after the Romans wrecked us in 70 AD, the Jews went all over the place. So I would figure, from what I know and looking into it, every nation in Europe, every single one had the Jews in it. Most, if not all, of the Middle East had the Jews in it. Africa, perhaps not all. South Africa, yeah, I had family in South Africa. Morocco, I know a million Jews came out of Morocco. Algeria, or what do they call it, Algiers? Yeah, there too, Of course, Egypt, So, and other places in Africa, I believe Ethiopia, they were coming from different places. India, loaded with Jews. And there's roots that the lost tribes could likely, of course, it's rather a given to a lot of people, including myself, that the North American Indians are lost tribes. And there's a lot of evidence they could be in the careers, China, stuff like that too. There's an old story they tell, a bunch of rabbis go to China, they're on a trip and they go to the Chinese wall where they put the statues of soldiers, and they look at that and they heard about a Chinese synagogue, so they go to the Chinese synagogue. Yeah, it's a real old place, big, thick walls, like a Frankenstein movie, with a knocker on the door, and they go to, boom, 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 the outer gate. And a guy from inside, one of the rabbis, comes out and, inside the thing, asks, opens up the little door, look at him, a little bars in front of the door. Yes, what do you want, and they say to him, in Hebrew, that they are rabbis from Israel. And he looks at them through the door thing and he says to them, gee, that's funny, you don't look like Jews. He's only used to Chinese Jews. So that's a joke. It's not necessarily literally ever happened. But, this is likely the case. So, now it doesn't say all the people are going to be destroyed. It says the nations that he scattered us into. Now, we're not scattered into people. The word is goyim, and we're not scattered into people. So we were scattered into geographical countries, is what, to be precise, And those are what's going to be destroyed. And I would just take a whack at it. It's probably 125 countries. I'm pretty sure there's parts of Africa we may never have gotten into. South America, maybe some of the bad jungle areas we never were into, like around the Amazon or something, but there's plenty of Jews, like in Brazil, tons in Argentina. I've been there, there's whole Jewish neighborhoods in Buenos Aires, you know, Shabbat shuts down. I mean, and then there's been, they're in Chile. I don't think there's a lot today, but I believe you could find them in Chile. Colombia, I don't know what country in South America you would not find them in. I don't know of such a country. I don't know of a country that you would not find them in Central America. And in Mexico, I've got, family that are Jews, of course, in Mexico. And there's thriving Jewish communities, and the Mexican Jews are very pro-Israel. They send their kids when they're young to Israel to attend camps, and they learn Hebrew, and they're really very into Israel. They don't live here, but they're very supportive of Israel, not just make-believe supportive, really supportive. And of course, Canada and the United States. Now, I don't ever recall hearing about any Jews in Antarctica. That's a continent. I mean, I understand Antarctica didn't used to look like it was. It was, maybe in the past there were, I don't know. That guy his Admiral Byrd went down there, explored Antarctica, and some of his writings said there was lush farmland there. Were the Jews ever there? I have no idea one way or the other. I really don't know. Have they been in the Caribbean islands? Yeah. Maybe not now, but to any extent, but they used to be. There's a really cool book written, Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean. I think it goes to the 1600s. And there were Jews living in a lot of the Caribbean islands, and some of them were pirates. Not in the sense of being like Blackbeard, they worked for big governments to attack shipping, and they were able to keep a percentage of what they attacked and that kind of thing. So they were working as government agents, not like, renegade Blackbeards. They were somewhat more civilized, but most of the pirates were actually working for governments. But anyway, so we don't know from where all the lost tribes are. We don't know. Well, there wouldn't be lost tribes. I mean, in the New Testament days, we apparently did know a lot than we do today. This is found in the book of James. Right in the first chapter, it says, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Yeshua HaMashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. Well, they knew where they were back then. Like, 2,000 years ago approximately, they seem to know where they were back then, but I don't think we know too much now. You got to remember, God knows who they are, but a lot of the people with the Muslims got into hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, got into forced conversions to survive. And same thing with Catholicism, and then a lot of Jews, because there were so many persecutions, took on the ways of the non-Israelites and changed names and stayed away from synagogues and started acting like non-Israelites and even not telling their children who they were. this went on. So after 2-3 generations of this, the people have no idea they're Israelites. They believe they're Muslims, or they believe they're something else. And when God pours the Spirit out of them and Yeshua appears in the clouds, well, then they're going to wake up. God knows who they are. They don't know who they are. That's a big difference, of course. So, the way I see it now, being in recompense period, year of recompense is not a literal 360-day, 12-month year. It's a like you shall slay a lamb of the first year. So that gives you room where the lamb could be, 12 months and a day old, 13 months, 14, 15, 18 months, and so forth, up to 23 months old. And he's still in the first year, not in the second year, and you could slay the lamb. So that's the word is Shanat. Shana is the regular year, like, a regular calendar year, right? And Shanim is years in the plural. Shanat is not years in the plural, it's this other kind of in the year. That's a good way of putting it, in the year. But it's not a literal year. It could be longer than. That's not such a great thing either, because it can be more than a year old. The animal at 18 months is not just a year old. It's 18 months old, but it's in the first year. So it's that kind of word has no real meaning in English per se. So it seems that it would happen before the second year is what I'm looking at this. But when the Lord told it to me, he told me we were in Recompenses, which was August 10th, 2023. So these are one of the few things I teach that I don't have a scripture for. But you can look around you and it sure looks good. So you're going to see it pop off. It's not a game. They're going to go for each other. And don't think that America really wants to de-escalate. That's nonsense. That's just chatter. America's trying to make it look good. They don't want to come off like warmongers. They're trying to make it look like they're peace. Look at their actions. What have they brought to the Middle East? Aircraft carriers. There's two of them, the Harry Truman and Abraham Lincoln, plus their destroyers with them, the escort vessels. Plus, I don't know how many submarines they got here that launch missiles and protect warships. So these things are aggressive war toys. They're not to take down missiles. And America, I'm told, has about 1,000 aircraft in the region now, the Middle East theater, or theater to be soon. And those things are not really defensive, they're offensive. Then they got bases all over the Middle East. They got probably 15 or so that Iran is threatening. I put a map of them up on my Telegram channel that Iran is threatening. you're going to see it go down. I don't know what day, but I imagine it's going to come in the days ahead. And remember, the daughter of Babylon has her own harvest. Okay? So I do believe that the exodus out of America will precede the next big general exodus, and or they'll be the first to come. And there's almost as many known Jews in America as there are in Israel. I think Israel is 6.6, 6.7 million, and America is about 6.5 known. The ones that know and admit that they're of Israel heritage, okay? The sleepers are, we don't know. The sleepers, the lost tribes, we don't know. Biden may want this war in the Middle East to pop off before Election Day, which is November 4th or 5th. I think it's the 4th. It's usually a Tuesday. Because there's going to be all kinds of protests all over the United States if that happens. And Biden could, by executive order, suspend the election. Well, he's not going to say, I indefinitely suspend the election and suspend Congress. He's not going to do that. He'd just say, well, we've got so much tensions, everything's so rough here. I'm going to extend the election to December 4th because things are too crazy here, right? And we could still swear in the new president on January 20th. Don't worry about it, right? What's Trump going to do? What can he do? Nothing. What's Kamala going to do? Nothing. And then what happens December 4th? Well, things won't be calm. There'll probably never be another election. Or if things are still kicking in America, he just says, oh, it's still too tense. We got to do it January 4th. But don't worry, we could still swear him in on January 20th. And he gets to stay in power. And there may never be another presidential election. And Trump may never, or anyone else may never become president of the United States. Don't take that lightly. It could really happen. It could really happen. How did Babylon get it? They woke up in the morning. Cyrus's soldiers were all over the place when they got up for breakfast. And they realized they were occupied and lost the war without an arrow being fired, so to speak, as a figure of speech. Not literally, but figure of speech. So, that's what America is looking at right now, just like the original Babylon. I've never heard a single church or a single synagogue talk about America as the daughter of Babylon. It is an Old Testament concept, so they should talk about it in the synagogues, but they don't. They don't want you to believe it, I guess, or they don't understand it, or both. So those of you in America are not going to have long to wait, because before the big wipeout, you'll get out of there. You'll get out of America to Israel. And it says, let those of you that survive the sword, let Zion come to mind. Will there be military invasion in addition to the sleeper agents? Probably, at least air attacks. Probably some kind of invasion, I guess, but possibly not. how are the invaders going to get out? I don't know. Maybe they don't get out. I have to look at that more carefully, but I don't see them leaving. They may die in there. I don't know. There's no scripture that talks about the invaders in America leaving. It says they'll spoil the land, but spoil it doesn't always mean take their wealth and riches and leave. It could mean that. Let's look at that a little more carefully. It's Jeremiah 50:51. Let's try the word spoil. Spoil can mean like the spoils of war, the booty, the stuff you confiscate. Whoops. And Chaldea shall be a spoil. All that spoil her shall be satisfied. And I will give it into the hands of the strangers for a prey, and to the wicked of the earth as a spoil, that they may spoil. Let's check those words. And I will give it into the hands of the stranger for a prey. What is the word prey? Bots. No, that's a booty. That's goods. It would mean more so not to spoil in the terms of devastate, but in terms of spoil as get the gold watches, the fur coats, the paintings, things like that. And they shall pollute it. Okay. Now, let's check that word pollute. That's not... Okay. Kalal. That's like a desecrate word for a temple or something like that. Let's see what Strong's throws it into English as. To bore, will dissolve, profane. I'm not getting any kind of a good interpretation of this for pollute. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Sorry, that's the whole problem here. I was in the wrong book. Let me get back on track. Sorry. I was in Ezekiel. That was silly. All right. That doesn't have... That was probably referencing what happened to the temple. Okay. So let's go back into Jeremiah 50:10. Sorry, I deviated. And Chaldea shall be a spoil. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith Jehovah. Well, see, the word spoil here, shalal, it could have the meaning of plunder, booty, spoil, riches robbed, and stuff. So if they're going to take a spoil and they're going to be satisfied, let's check the word satisfied. Sabah, I think it really means satisfied, but fill to satisfy. In other words, get enough. So it's saying you're going to get enough booty, or plunder, or confiscate treasures, or something like that. So what I think this is talking about is you combine this, the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. These people are going to go and take the money and the wealth out of America. Whether they're going to go to the wealthy houses, they're not going to go into the ghetto apartments and rob their crack and their heroin. They're not going to do that, or rob their nothing that they have. They may not be drug addicts. They just don't have anything. That's why they're living there on welfare. They're going to go to the wealthier houses, and what are they going to take? Well, all jewelry, good clothes, electronics, computers, phones. They'll probably wreck the house. They'll probably eat the food, sleep in the bed, go in the swimming pool. They might come with ships and take the cars away. They might take the aircraft away. They might take many machines, from factories away. I don't know how serious it'll be, but China and Russia and other countries certainly got enough ships to haul the cargo out, but then they would have to transport the cargo from the interior states of America to the borders to get it out, unless they're going to fly it out. I don't know. It might be more simplex that the soldiers are just going to take a backpack and put stuff in their backpack. But when you got, 18 million soldiers loading their backpacks up, you're going to have a lot of stuff leaving America. And the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous, which is the Israelites, and all, of course, the believers in Yeshua are Israelites, and the wealth will circulate back to us. So, yeah, that probably is it. So all these Rolexes, Patek Philippe's, Audemars Piguet, and the expensive everything, the crystalware, the solid silverware that they use. The wealthy people eat on solid silverware, because silver is actually, like you heard of colloidal silver, it's it kills germs. So the rich people, 600 years ago, all had, they had a lot of silver plates, silver goblets or cups, or whatever you want to call it, and silverware like spoons, knives, forks, right? And they called them blue bloods, because if you were going to drink a lot of colloidal silver, by that you'd probably have to drink a pint a day. Most people take it by the teaspoon or the tablespoon. You'd probably have to drink at least a pint a day. You could get a blue aura to yourself, look blue, your lips, maybe some of your skin. So they called them blue bloods, because they had very little sanitation back then, and plagues were common around that time in Europe. We're talking mostly Europe here, or I think exclusively Europe. So they used the silver because it was anti-germs, and they, a lot of them, when they would touch their cup to drink tea or coffee, whatever they would drink it, they would touch it very daintily, because they didn't want to touch it, because the staff, the workers for them, would be touching it, and they were concerned about, they had a lot of plagues, and just if you got a regular flu back then, you could be in very bad shape for a long time and maybe die and that kind of thing. And a lot of them lived in dank, damp, dark castles, and they lived in winters with snow and rain and the cold, and they didn't have the climate control houses that we have today. So they would, they had problems. I guess some of them lived in warm climates and they didn't have this problem, and some didn't. And some had houses in the north of their country, in the spring and the summer and the fall, maybe they'd be there, and then for the winter they'd go someplace in the south where they had much better weather. And then maybe in the heat they would go to some retreat up high in elevation so they wouldn't have to suffer from the heat and that kind of thing. But that's where the blue bloods term came from. So there's a lot of people today in America that have real silverware, and I think it would be rather rare for anybody in America to have real gold silverware. First thing is, silverware is a rather hard metal. This bracelet I've had for years, which I bought when silver was, I don't know, I think it was under $10 an ounce or something like that. It was really cheap. I don't remember what it was. It's very low. This is years and years old. It's real sturdy. So silver can be sturdy. Gold, for a knife, it would bend. Maybe if you had 10 karat gold, it wouldn't, but 10 karat gold is not going to look like gold. You got to get up to probably 12 or 14 carats. 14 carats looks like gold, 18 even better, 22 better yet. But, I don't think they did that now. Maybe in the Renaissance days, some of the wealthy people had it, but it would make lousy silverware. Your fork prongs would be bending. Knives and spoons would bend. Silver's malleable. It's not hard and firm and rigid, so it's lousy. So I think they use silver, because silver would make good plates, good goblets. When you see Hollywood, you see the old guys in the Renaissance with the wigs and all that stuff, and they would have china cups. They would drink, I guess a tea out of or something like that. And they would hold it, a little china. But did they really have little dainty china-made cups back then? Teacups? I don't think so. I don't know. I think they had a lot of sturdy things like solid silver goblets that they would drink wine or water or juice or tea could go in there, But I imagine that in some places like England, they were using fancy little, china teacups, maybe France, and I don't know. But yeah, a lot of it was silver. They felt better about it. Now they probably had ways to wash plates and silverware back then. I don't think it was real popular to have running water with a tap. They probably had pulled buckets of water into the kitchen in the palace, which could have been a detached kitchen or off on a wing on the lower floor or who knows what. It was probably attached or very close to the palace they lived in. And they probably had containers or sinks or basins or whatever they put the dishes in and washed them up. So I don't think they were that clean. They might have wiped them after that with a clean towel. I don't know if they had gone out and left them in the sun for 3 hours to sterilize them. I never heard them doing that. They probably just washed them with water and then wiped them down, but the silver would not be conducive for germs to survive in it. So they would get more mileage out of the silver. So a lot of the wealthy people today still use it, but when you use it, you've got to run it in a dishwasher or to clean it, right? They're not idiots today. So they run it through a dishwasher, and then after the dishwasher, they have to take these special cloths and wipe the silver down, I believe. Or maybe the dishwasher dries it and you don't have to, I don't know. And then they put it back in a box with, like a velvety lining. They store it. It's a high maintenance item, but when you think about it, we have a dishwasher that sanitizes the dishes. It runs a long time, about close to 2 hours. So when it's finished, it gives a lot of heat there and dries everything off. So the dishes aren't wet anymore. So they could have that today and it wouldn't be that high maintenance. Um, you got to watch for tarnishing. If it's got liquids on it, it'll tarnish, water. So you got to watch. But, there's tons of houses in America still have that left over. When I was a kid, which is a long time ago, not really in the greater scheme of things, but lots of families still had their silverware where they had a box with all, with maybe 8 knives, 8 teaspoons, 8 tablespoons, 8 forks, and special implements for cutting pie and big knives for bread or whatever. And they had the box and it was all pure silver, maybe for 8 people, sometimes for 4, some usually for 8. And they hardly ever used it because after they used it, they'd have to wipe it, polish it, and then put it back in the case. And they didn't want to do that, you know. So it hung around, but it was rarely used. We didn't have dishwashers. When I was a kid, that would have been rare. They existed, but it would have been rare. What most people did is they had a sink and they used soap and a sponge or something and they washed the dishes with the soap and that did the job. They cleaned them up and then rinsed them pretty good and then put them in a rack to dry them. And that was the end of it. That took care of the problem, of getting a clean dish without germs growing in and stuff like that. And a lot of people still do that today and it works, So, but you have running water. If you don't have running water, that's not a great thing. Now, maybe in the old days in the Renaissance, they had, so many servants in the kitchen that they had a steady stream of people bringing buckets of water in, and they would wash the dishes with some sort of a soap, which they did know how to make soap. And then they would pour fresh water on it to get the soap off and then dry the dishes. So maybe they did do that, I don't know. But I do know that the royals, the blue buds, were really into having everything that went in their mouth in the food genre be of silver. So, okay, the blue buds. So I think I hope you gained something today. I tried. Let me see if we got questions coming up in the chat. Yeah, the Welsh tribes are going to see Yeshua because when you go to, and they'll be changed, because when you read Jeremiah 31:31, Jeremiah 31 in general, which comes after Jeremiah 30, which is the birth of the nation in a day, which is the appearing of the Son of Man in the clouds, and that's when the moon turns to blood and the sun goes dark also, but in fairly close proximity to that, I would say. And then you see probably preceding it. And then you see, it says, they shall all know me from the least to the greatest, and no longer going to say, know the Lord, they shall all know me the least to the greatest. I will give them a new heart of flesh. I will put the law in their inward parts. They shall all know me. So yeah, it happens to all of them, I believe, based on that. Theodore Herzl was an atheist. I don't know. I don't deny it. I don't know. No idea. No idea. All right. So if you want to ask me questions, you got my email address. It's up at the top of the chat. It's the lowest line down in the description box. Offering information is pinned at the top of the chat. It's in the description box. So please pray for me and my wife for our peace, safety, and protection. There's a war going on. Big wars. Pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray we don't have to go in the bomb shelter. pray for better videos in the future. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And, you can pray for the Israeli soldiers for victory, peace, safety, protection. You can do that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's actually a pretty good thing. They're not your enemies at all. So you can pray for them, because the people they're fighting are your enemies. Even if you're not an Israelite or a Jew, they're your enemies. The only way you're not their enemy is if you're a Muslim, and you'd have to then be in a certain sect of Islam to make them be friends with you. Now, I don't think anybody's going to invade Iran, except we have a possible here. And though that possible is the Taliban psychotics that are in Afghanistan. And remember, America mysteriously left all kinds of weapons for the Taliban. Biden did. And these weapons were salvageable, and they could help them invade Iran after Iran is noticeably weakened. Now, they are not an ally of Israel that I know of, and nor do I think they are at all, but they have a bad blood bone to pick with Iran. And they may go in and hurt Iran. They need Iran to be weakened first. And if they were going to do that, Biden and Netanyahu would probably give them more weapons. I'm not so sure Netanyahu would give them weapons, but Biden probably would. They may go in. So pray that Israel gets the money back, that the $500 million stored by Nasrallah in Beirut, and distributes it to the people that got hurt by Hezbollah. I think that's just desserts. Pray for that, if you feel moved to, But you could pray for the soldiers, pray for the pilots in the planes, pray for the sailors on the Israel ships, pray for the ground soldiers. Why can't you pray for them? They're fighting for Israel. That's your future home. Why can't you pray for them? So remember, I believe they're going to get a chance. They're going to survive these wars, I think, and then they're going to meet Elijah and Apostle John, and they're going to have to make some choices. Some will go after Elijah and Apostle John. They won't want a temple or anything. You'll see a lot of people show their true colors in the coming days. So pray I can do better videos, get more insights. Thank you for those that are giving offerings. And please remember to pray for this jar. It's like every day I get it. I put the red light stuff on it. It gets better. Then it comes back. I don't know. I'm going to have to try to treat it more aggressively with the lights, I guess, or something. Maybe I'll add magnesium in. That might help things. Well, I'm not quite at 3 hours. That's good. So please hit the thumbs up button, and I appreciate your prayers. Sometimes I think I ride on your prayers, sort of, kind of. And well, that's what I got. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.